All right, and welcome back to another episode of Butler's Babble. We hope everybody's enjoying this beautiful summer weather we're getting here, especially here in the Ontario region of Canada. And today we have an amazing show for you today. We have a special guest that I think you're going to love. He was given to me, his name, by a friend of mine here locally, and she praised him a lot. I got to talk to him on the phone, and we had such a great conversation. It was no doubt that we had to get him on this show. Some of you might know him, some might not, some might have seen some of the stuff that he's done. But before we get into that, and we'll bring him in wait a second because you don't want to sit here listening to me. I just want to go through a little bit of housekeeping like we always do. Remember that if you are watching this through Facebook, through our Facebook Live page, be sure to go to, while you have a second, you can just do it on another window. Try and go to streamyard.com/Facebook and give them permission to use your name. Because once you do that, it allows us to see who's making comments and who's not making comments. I'll see it on my other screen here, but if I try and bring your question or comment up on here, it's just going to come in as Facebook user instead of showing who you are. So unless you want to have it remain anonymous, that's up to you. But it's very safe. It's not going to do anything. They're not going to do cookies into your computer, things like that. So something very safe. And if you could do that, that would be great. But feel free. This is interactive. We are live both to Facebook and to YouTube. So if you're on our YouTube channel, you can talk and ask questions too. Feel free to ask any questions and comments, and we'll try and see if Corey can answer some of those for you. And I'm sure he would if you can send those questions in. But with no further ado, let's let you know who our guest is. Of course, I'm sure you already saw. We have, of course, the amazing Corey Dixon in. He's a performer. He's an actor. He's a musician, from what I see too, on some of the stuff there, and very much an influential speaker these days in the mental health and depression and anxiety issues, which we will definitely get into later on in the show. But instead of me telling you who he is, why don't we bring him on and let him tell himself? So Corey, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you. I'm glad. I apologize, everybody, that we're a week late, but due to some scheduling issues between Corey and I, we finally got things together. Corey's in the middle of moving and stuff like that, so we had to go around his schedule, and I'm more than welcome to do that. So I appreciate you taking the time out. I know you're a busy guy.
No problem. Yeah, I just try to keep occupied. Obviously, that's a huge thing when it comes to coping with mental health, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. And so why don't we go way back before we get into a lot of the other stuff? Why don't we find out who Corey is? And let's go back to tell us a little bit about little Corey, where you're born, your family life, things like that as a little child. Give us a little bit more background about Corey.
Yeah, sure. So I was born and raised in Mississauga, Ontario. I was raised by both my dad and my mom. They eventually had a divorce, but nonetheless, I love both my parents. I attended a school in in Mississauga as well, which we'll get into that a little bit later. But there was a little bit complex there with when I went to high school. But yeah, I was thrown into the arts at a very young age. My parents kind of, I was in a baby magazine at the age of like a baby. And then ever since the age of like 5 and up, I was thrown into theater, which I thank them for because I ended up finding a huge passion within theater and the arts in itself. So when people ask like, do you like singing? Do you like acting? It's kind of, for me, like the arts is just the arts, performing
Mhm.
arts, whatever. So for me, it's just kind of one big ball. So I like to do it all and just keep.
So you were basically performing before you were even in school, before you even started school.
Yeah, listen, my parents had me as a baby in a magazine. I was like modeling. So I mean,
I know what that's like. Apparently, my mom tells me, or my older brother tells me, my mom apparently put my brother into audition to be the Gerber baby because at that time they were looking for a new baby for the jars of Gerbers and stuff. He never won, of course, but or we might be a little bit further down on the financial trail there a little bit. But so 5 years old, you're thrown into the acting. But I know myself, growing up in like school and high school, I was one of those kids that was very shy. You would never know it now. Anybody knows me will tell you that I'm not shy. But back then, I mean, you get me in front of a classroom of my peers to say a speech or to do a poem or something like that we did. My mouth was like pasties and just dried up and just I was nervous as that. But if you're going in by 5, you were probably just a very social and very I guess outgoing personality right from the start.
Definitely was. I would say I was probably more of an extrovert than back in the day than I am actually now. Like now,
Okay.
if people like say, "Hey, like, you know, uh, Corey, like, what would you consider yourself now?" I like to say probably more introverted now, just because like of stuff that's gone on in my in which we'll get there. But stuff that's gone on both my mental health and stuff like that. I try to, cope by taking long, relaxing, warm showers and stuff like that. So
Definitely.
I'm not a party guy as nearly as much as I used to be. I used to be probably way more fun back in the day than I am now. Now I'm just more about like, keeping busy with like work related stuff and whatnot.
Okay. So you go, you're doing all that stuff, and then finally you're 4 or 5 years old, you're getting thrown into kindergarten, and you're going grade one. What was you like as a student when you first started school? Were you very rambunctious? Were you
Yeah, so in elementary school, I did want to help out with kids with disabilities. Like that's just something that kind of, it put me in that way. So when I was in school, I was really focused on the arts, trying my best to get good grades, and then also helping out kids with disabilities, which I was actually really excluded for. So, like a lot of kids especially in elementary school, they didn't see me the same because I was kind of hanging around those kids and trying to help out those kids, which was very unfortunate, I thought. But
No, definitely. And but it's kind of funny how with the direction you are in now, and as we get through the show, people will see the direction you've gone on a lot of stuff, how a lot of it started right from the start. You're almost it basically was training you to go to that direction.
I I, I definitely believe so. Yes.
Okay, and I'm one of those ones that I was a total believer that uh, things happen for a reason. People are brought into your life for a reason, all that kind of stuff. So maybe that was the direction you were supposed to go in. So you never know. So
For
as
sure.
you're going through school, were you a popular kid in elementary school? Were you one that was
No,
no?
no, not at all. I think because I was helping with those kids with disabilities and whatnot, I was kind of, um, I like to say probably excluded a lot. So like a lot of people didn't want to surround themselves with me because they thought I was different, and you know what? Maybe I was. I mean, like I every time there was a theatrical play being put on in elementary school, I took that opportunity. I was like, yes, I'm gonna do it. So I was a choir kid.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
so I went through choir during elementary school. I did every single elementary school play that was brought up,
Mhm.
and then I obviously helped out with kids with disabilities. So no, I was not popular.
Okay. And I know where I went to school in, I grew up in Southern Ontario too. I was growing up in Brampton, which is just also right beside Mississauga, between Mississauga and Toronto there. And we had like, uh, junior public school, I guess they call it, which was like our elementary up to grade five. Then you had junior high or secondary school, which went six, seven, eight. And then you had high school. Was your school one of those kind of things where you went to grade five and then you had to go to a new school and then from grade nine go to another school?
No, not mine. So, my elementary school was from kindergarten all the way up to grade 8, and then into high school, obviously.
Yeah, no, definitely. Okay. So, and that's how a lot of them are doing it here too. So, and I found sometimes that makes it even more difficult if you're a type of person who's shy and not able to make friends easily. You're going to grade five. All of a sudden, you're going to go to another school. Yeah, some of your friends are going with you, but then you're getting kids from another school feeding into that too. And now you got to make a whole bunch of new friends. So you said you were
Yeah.
into choir a lot. I know myself. I actually nobody would know it by now because my wife says when I sing, I make her ears bleed. But when I was in like six, seven, and eight, I was in the band. I was in choir. I was in all that kind of stuff too. And in high school, music was half of my school. I was a drummer growing up, so
Oh, nice.
music was my school. That was kind of a way for me, I think, to get out of my shell of being that shy person, and it was a way for me to express myself a little bit and be not so shy. I can get in front of that drum set and play in front of tons of people, and it never bothered me. Is that? Do you find that was an outlet for you too, kind of with the choir and stuff like that?
Yeah, definitely. It's funny because like I was always nervous about you know making friends because I already knew people didn't want to be my friend. So a lot of the way I would kind of like get all that social energy out was exactly that, like auditioning for the school's play or whatever, and then just belting it out on stage, or our elementary school did a lot of musicals, so like it was a good thing that I was a choir kid because
Yeah.
um you know as it, now my voice is obviously not nearly as good as it used to be, but because I obviously dropped singing and went the acting route.
Yeah.
But like completely the acting route. Before I
Mhm.
used to be both like acting and musical, and then I was like, and then when I hit high school, that's when I was kind of slowly but surely gave up the singing stuff,
Mhm.
and then strictly went to the acting stuff until last year, which we'll get into that.
No, definitely. And I find a lot of them start that way too, because you look at a lot of actors out there now, and they started in school in choir. A lot of them did musicals, like you said. I know in my school we
Yeah,
had like Oklahoma and Grease and things, and you would do the school plays and stuff. And a lot of people, but then when they get out of school, that's they tend to go one way or the other. They're either going to go more music or more into the acting. And some only stay some, or they come back to it and do Broadway and stuff. But now,
yeah.
getting into high school now, that was probably a whole different animal for you.
Yes. That was an interesting one for sure. So I initially started off by getting accepted to the art school, the high school that I wanted to go to.
Okay.
And I did take a few drama courses there and stuff like that, and that was honestly probably the best part about that high school. But my high school life was not pleasant.
Okay.
So I ended up getting the high school era is basically when I was mainly getting the TV role. So like the episode of Degrassi, and then the scripted reality TV show. I can say that now because my contract's no longer existent. Scripted reality TV show, stuff like that. And it's just you would think that the kids would like be all over. You'd be like, oh, Corey's on TV. He's the cool kid now. But the complete opposite.
Okay.
It was an outlet for them to make fun of me and tease me about it.
Did they
So
try and make it out like, oh, what he thinks he's too good for us type of a thing?
could have been. I never really took the time to really talk to them to kind of
Hmm.
understand why they were bullying me and whatnot, but it did turn into quite a lot of bullying. But started off verbally teasing and stuff like that, and then it turned physical. And then, funny enough, near like I think it was a grade like late grade 10, grade 11, actually ended up switching high schools to another local school where the kids didn't really know who I was, and I kind of tried to remain under the radar as much as possible, which was
Okay.
hard because I'm still doing the acting stuff. But there, they didn't tease me or bully me as much, and it was tolerable. But the art school I did initially go to, it got so bad with like the physical bullying that they like I got beat up pretty bad. It got to the point where my dad actually had to physically drag me out of that high school. So
And like, was there nothing schools wise that they were doing about it, or was this all away from the like nobody? There was nothing they could do.
the school actually got me to try to stay because they didn't want the bad luck of me
Hmm.
leaving their high school.
No,
So
definitely.
even though they knew the bullying was going on, they actually encouraged me and were trying to get me to stay, even though we were persistent on leaving that school.
So is this, I guess, part of your life where, like you said, up until like from grade 4 or 5, you're out, you're doing acting in school, you're pretty rambunctious, you're very extrovert, as you would say. Is this transition going to grade 9, grade 10, getting the bullying and started your possession back into like an introvert more?
I Yes and no. Maybe a little bit yes, but that wasn't definitely where that threw me back into whole introvert. I think the maturing aspect outside of high school and what I went through after high school was actually what pushed me back into the introverted route.
Hmm.
But yeah, I know. So one thing I did in high school that was not a healthy thing was I did lead to like alcohol and outside of high school parties,
Hmm.
just to kind of get myself away from that depression feeling.
Yeah.
So it kind of like covered up for that. But then after I stopped doing all that stuff, and after um, I went through what I went through back in 2016, everything changed after that.
Okay. So in high school, you're going through all this. Was there anybody there at the school, peers wise, like friends and that were there that didn't know about it? Maybe you kept it to yourself, or they just stayed away from it, or were you just basically you were just by yourself? There was nobody there to turn to. Because
I
you got
got
to remember these
Yeah.
are probably what in the '90s, I guess,
Oh, no, no,
or
no.
early 2000s, I guess.
Um,
Sorry.
no, 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 not even then. Yeah, I would say 2000s. But
Okay.
yeah, I'm a 94 baby, so I would have been in high school probably like I think I graduated in 2013.
Okay.
Think so, something like that.
Yeah. Okay.
Like if I got that math right.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, I would say that I definitely did have a couple people that had my back and that were there for me. But
Hmm.
there was a fair chunk in high school that faked being my friend, or
Hmm.
were not my friend, the complete opposite, and did bully me and definitely put me down in any way they possibly could.
Because I know I'm a 72 baby, so I'm the old one here. And so I went through junior high and high school during the 80s. And back then, I'm sure there was lots of mental health like there is now, probably just as much, if not more back then, but it was more suppressed because it wasn't, um, you didn't speak about it. Everything was all hush hush. That's one thing you don't, you speak about that, you're going to a hospital, you're going to this. Like there was always
For
this
sure.
stigma against it. Luckily, in the last, say, 10, 15 years, I would like to say things have turned around where, it is a lot easier to talk about it now and people are not making a stigma out of it. Back when it was happening to you, was it still kind of stigma and that's why you kind of kept it to yourself, or is it
Yeah,
just an
I think I think
embarrassment thing?
no, I think there's still stigma with mental health even till this day. Even though more and more people talk about it, especially after COVID and everything,
Hmm.
it still exists. There's still stigma, especially within the entertainment industry, which I think is, there's a few people out there that I know for a fact don't want to work with me because they know that I have depression and stuff, and they're worried if it's going to come up on set and stuff like that. So it still exists.
Hmm.
It's just I don't think people fully understand mental health and depression. Not saying that's everybody. I'm just saying there is still a lot of people out there that don't fully understand it. Maybe they don't have someone in their life that's going through that stuff right now, and maybe that's
Hmm.
why.
No,
Um,
exactly. No, I totally agree with you because, especially like you said, during this last 2.5, 3 years with the whole pandemic, I think a lot of mental health issues have come to the surface from people who you never would have thought were having mental health issues. And we got a mutual friend of ours, Kat Ward, watching us today, and she said we're both babies still. So I guess she's a little older than us. And but
I mean, yeah,
but no, and I think you coming out in front of everybody and telling people about what you went through, because people always see somebody who's on a TV show or they're in, like you were in Degrassi. I know it was just a bit part. To me, there's no little parts. It's
yeah,
all a building stone to everything. So you're on there. I mean, that's a big thing. So you're on Degrassi. You're on. We'll get to some of the other stuff you're in because you're. I know there was a splat a lot that you did, and there was a whole bunch of different things. And you're also hosting your own stuff with Wonderland, Canada's Wonderland. So you're
yeah.
on TV. You're in the public eye like that. People think, oh, he's got it made. I mean, he's got no bad issues. He's paying his bill. Like there's nothing. They don't
Yeah,
see the behind the scenes, and I think it's great somebody like you does come out and talk about this
yeah,
because it does happen, and it wasn't all
absolutely.
roses for you growing up.
No, and it's still not roses now, and that's I think the most interesting part is that you're very right when you say that people think that because I'm doing all this great stuff that I'm set and I have all this money and like I'm like nothing gets to my head. They're completely wrong.
Hmm.
I can't tell you how many times, how many nights I'd sit there and would just want somebody to simply text me, checking in, saying like, hey Corey, how are you doing? That's
Hmm.
all I really ask for, and my phone doesn't go off as much as you think. It's just like it'd be nice to have someone to just check it on me, and I do have those people. Like I talk as if I don't, but I do have a couple of people. They know who they are.
Hmm.
That actually do check on me, and I appreciate those people more than you know. I know I have, a fan following on Twitter and social media, and they always check in the entertainment posts I'm doing, and they interact with the fun stuff that I'm doing. But I find like when I end up, really coming out of my shell and wanting just someone to vent to, whatever, they all just disperse,
Hmm.
and I think that's just something that I I I don't. I don't get it. Maybe that's just because like I'm kind of in my own world during that moment, and like I'm depressed and I'm not feeling well, and I just want someone to check in with me.
Definitely.
And the thing is, like, okay, message everybody out there. Everybody in the entertainment industry, I guarantee you, at some point in their life, they're battling with mental health issues. I
Yep.
have a lot of friends that work in the entertainment industry, and a good chunk of them do battle with mental health issues. And I think there's this huge, like you said, this huge stigma where we're all supposed to act happy all the time, and we look so happy in our videos and content creation and stuff like that. You got it so wrong. We're not always happy, and that's
Yep.
just the reality of dealing with our mental health issues.
No.
So yeah,
No, and we all need somewhere that we can, like you said, vent out. And sometimes I think what it is it's not that people they don't want to be there for us
yeah,
when we do vent out. It's just sometimes some people don't know how to react to it or don't know how to be there for
For
somebody.
sure.
And sometimes it just takes a matter of just sitting there and just listening. You don't have to say a word. Just say, you know what, I'm here to listen and just let you get it out. And then just have some kind words to say back. You might not know I don't think sometimes, even if you, like you said, there's times where you're just depressed, you just want somebody to talk to, and you're not really looking for answers. You're not really looking for them to tell you what to do. You just need somebody to be there and say, you know what, it's going to be okay. You're going to get through it.
Exactly. Like I've heard all sorts of advice like, oh, you should go talk to a therapist, which I've had several times. I have attended group therapy. I've done everything you could ever imagine in regards to the mental health world, and I'm still doing that to this day. I do have a one-on-one therapist that I see, which I'm very fortunate to have that one-on-one therapist. But the reality is like, it's right. Sometimes we don't need to hear, oh, you need to get a therapist. You should go, talk to your psychiatrist. We don't need to hear that as people that are
Hmm.
battling mental health issues. We just want somebody that can be there and be like, oh, hey, Corey, like, how are you doing today? How are you feeling? That's all I really want. I mean,
No,
that's
definitely. And I think one thing I was watching an episode you were doing an interview with doing somebody else, and actually I think it was the one I was telling you about before, where you were doing your own bio type of thing. And one thing you brought up that I thought was very big is you remember I grew up in the 70s and 80s and the 90s. You were more into the 2000s. By then, internet was coming out, and then around 2007 is when Facebook hits the market in that area. But before then, you still had stuff like uh, MSN Messenger, things like that, and they were
oh
doing like
yes.
chat rooms and things like that. And it brings on a whole new meaning to bullying, and the
Yeah.
cyberbullying comes in, and people I don't think take that as seriously as it really should be, because I know I have two daughters, one's 21 and one's going to be 15 this year, and I know myself how detrimental that can be. And I'm glad that I grew up in an era that we didn't have the internet and that we went outside and played. And if you got an issue with somebody at school, you would go on the playground, you might duke it out or something, and the next day you're best friends again. I'm not telling anybody to go fight anybody. Don't get me there, um, but at the same time, we didn't have the cyberbullying and all this other stuff. And so,
For sure.
were you maybe a little victim to that too, in a sense?
Oh yes. Yes. I think before like it even turned to physical bullying within high school, they started targeting me specifically through social media outlets and stuff like that. I still get attacked on social media.
Hmm.
Not going into detail about it, but like even now, like because of everything that happened back in 2016, I'm getting a lot of hate from stuff like that when it was just an innocent accident, which we'll talk about that in a minute.
Hmm.
But it's called, but there's a lot of hate in relation to that, and I get bullied every single day of my life if I don't see a comment like somewhere on my Twitter or a response to an old article that the news station wrote up from something in relation to myself or whatever. um you know it's not surprising to me anymore,
Hmm.
and as much as I see those comments and it hurts, I kind of I try to just push it under the rug, those
Yeah.
comments, and try to just move on.
Hmm.
I like to take little social media breaks, which I've done recently, without even saying it. I've taken like little, I haven't been as active as on content creating as I probably should be right now, but
Hmm.
um, you know, we all need a little bit of a break.
No, exactly.
Um, but yeah, like it's happening even now. Like I'm gonna be 20 in October, and I still get bullied online. So
Hmm.
unfortunately, it's a thing that does happen today quite often,
Sure.
and I don't understand why people have to be so harsh. It's great that you have your opinion. Everyone's
Yeah.
entitled to their opinion, but if you're gonna sit there and like degrade someone to the point, especially if you know they're already battling with stuff, that's just sickening.
No,
You
exactly.
know? Like,
And they don't understand that words can hurt just as much as physical violence or anything. So I mean, it hurts just as much. So I'm glad that you do have some sort of a coping mechanism with that, because I'm sure you have. I'm sure you've learned through like your one-on-one therapies and that a lot of different coping methods that you can deal with, whether it be from physical harassment, whether it be from online cyberbullying, or even just dealing with your anxieties themselves and your just depressions and stuff like that. Now, like you said, you went through high school, you're going through all this, and then all of a sudden, 2016 comes along, and you
yeah.
have something that nobody should have to go through.
Yeah. So about that. So it was really, really unexpected. So see, I used to love to go for drives with my friends. I had my driver's license. I was out there with my car. I was 21 back in 2016 when this happened. And I'd go out with my friends, for like night drives or just scenic country drives and stuff like that. And that is just what I love doing. I just felt like, when I was depressed or when I was having my, anxiety moments when I was feeling anxious. Um, that's just some of the therapeutic sort of stuff that I would do is go for those type of drives. So there was one night that my friend, myself and two of my friends, we decided to go for a drive, and we ended up at this place that we saw off of TripAdvisor. And it was a public access place, and we thought very innocent of it. We didn't think that we were going to end up in any sort of trouble at all. Um, Long story short, um, won't say where, but I ended up, and not from scaling the cliff. I was actually on a staircase before I actually fell off the cliff, but I ended up unfortunately falling off of a 50-foot cliff.
Ouch.
And this resulted in me being completely unconscious right away. The poor first responders had to rope rescue me. It was like a 2-hour rope rescue. The poor firefighters and paramedics and police. I can only imagine what they went through that night. But I was extremely lucky to be alive. I was put on life support for about 2 weeks. On a ventilator. I had significant injuries, ruptured aorta, which most people don't even survive. I had significant spinal cord injuries. I was hospitalized for well over a year, 5 surgeries later, lots of rehab. It was a life changing experience, both physically and mentally.
And you were
And
physically completely paralyzed, correct?
yeah, so for the first little while from the waist down, I could not feel my legs. And the spinal cord doctor was completely uncertain, on borderline like certain that I was not going to be able to walk again. So to give you an
Mm.
idea, so like from your spine, you all have these like, T7, all these like your T
Yep.
level spine. So for my like T level, all the way down to my S was completely fractured. My L1 was completely bursted into my canal, all where my nerves were, and bone fragments just went shattering right into there. So um, there's X-ray photo, like photos up on my social media if anybody wants to go see them. They're there, they're public. But yeah, I am extremely lucky to be walking, let alone extremely lucky to be alive.
Yeah, because I think I read on your thing there that the operations that they did to get you to walk again, basically five of what 1,000 people maybe actually come out walking again.
Yeah, something like that. I was told like by several spinal cord doctors that I was very lucky to have been able to walk. And the uncertainty of me being able to walk was probably one of the most scariest things too.
Definitely.
Just knowing that alone would have completely destroyed my acting career for sure. Yes, there are actors in wheelchairs, but it's not very often that someone in a wheelchair gets selected for an acting gig.
Hmm.
So I knew that was going to destroy my career right there. And yeah, it was a life-changing event nonetheless.
No, definitely. So I'm sure when that's all done now, all of a sudden, like you said, you're acting, but even with your rehab, and you're starting to walk again. But I'm sure there was still lots more rehab to go after that, even though you're walking again. Was there anything on the acting side that said that no, I don't see him acting again, or did they still reach out to you and say, you know what, when you're feeling better, let us know, or did this just put you in such a big, deep depression that you just didn't know what was going to happen?
It was a lot of uncertainty. We weren't even going to sure what I was going to do with the agency that I was with at the time. And everyone that I was working with from an acting standpoint, entertainment standpoint basis, they were they were really they were really unsure what was going to be my
Hmm.
life after hospitalization and stuff like that. And it was crushing, like,
Hmm.
because like to have your life at the age of 21 change like that, it was um, the worst feeling
No,
that
I can imagine.
that's like both having physical issues, like legitimately physically. And I hate separating physical from mental health, because mental health, especially with panic attacks, they feel very real, and they do have really real physical symptoms.
True, very
But the
true.
reality is like, when I was battling in hospital for my life, I was battling both physically and mentally at the same time. And I would never wish what I went through on my
Hmm.
worst enemy. There are
Yeah.
people that I definitely dislike out there, but I wouldn't even wish any of that on them. Never.
Well, we're glad you got through it because look at you now. You're doing amazing. And Kat said, thankfully, you were unconscious for majority of the fall. And what she was asking, she apologized for the caps there, but she's like,
Oh yeah.
were you unconscious during the rescue too?
So here's the funny thing. So me, like mentally, yes, I was out. And I found out it's because of the brain injury that I had. I had a significant brain bleed that was going on inside my head as well as with all sorts of internal bleeding I was having. According to the first responders, that there's a photo on my social media somewhere as well in regards to this. But I actually went back to thank my first responders because I felt like that's the very least that I could do. I also went
Hmm.
back and thanked the hospital and stuff and everything they did for me. But when I was talking with the first responders, they said you weren't all there, meaning so like I was repeating the same four sentences over and over, which is a clear
Okay.
sign of a brain injury.
Okay.
So technically, I was conscious, but not really.
Okay.
I wasn't really there. So the answer to that question is when I hit the ground, yes, I did black out, and I don't remember anything from the rescue.
Okay. So no, and that's yeah, no, I don't know what you're going through, but I know the situation. Like my wife's had two strokes in her life, and one of them was a major stroke. She was in the hospital for many times. She almost died in the hospital like four times on them, and so I know the stress that it puts you under, and the
Yeah.
depression and the anxiety, and so it's definitely not easy. So to have you here and talking and coherent and everything like that, we had a guest on a month ago, and she had a major brain injury from her accident too, and she still suffers from that. So now, did you, with all that, did you end up having any strokes while you were there, or anything like that, or
So there was a query. It wasn't so much when I was in the trauma center. It's actually
hmm
when they moved me back home to my home hospital. They transferred
okay,
me by ambulance to my home hospital. And there was a situation where they were pretty sure I had a slight TIA, which is basically like a temporary stroke,
okay,
like a mini stroke.
hmm
And they were pretty certain I had one. But it was gone like that so quickly that they honestly they weren't able to catch it in time. By the next day that they scheduled the MRI for, they weren't able to see anything on like my brain was fine
okay,
besides
that's
the
good.
already existing damage from the head
No,
injury.
definitely, no, that
Yeah.
we're glad to see that. So now you you get through that. Well, you don't get through it, of course, but you're starting to get rehab now. You're starting to get yourself on the mend. Take us through some of the little process of trying to get you back to being the Corey you are now.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm never going to be 150% ever again, and I kind of have accepted that ever since my trauma. I mean, like I do have like metal plates in my left arm. I have rods in my spinal cord. I have an aortic stent. So realistically, and I go for regular doctor checkups and see vascular surgeons and all sorts of stuff. So I know that there's going to be a time where I'm gonna need it, like adjustment surgery, maybe on my spinal cord rods. Maybe I'm gonna need it for my aortic stent. Who knows?
Hmm.
But I have been warned by the doctors that this health journey of mine is not over, and
Hmm.
that there's a good chance I'm gonna need further surgeries and operations. So I'm just kind of accepting it at this point. But where I am right now,
Hmm.
um, I'm finding I'm experiencing a lot more like depression and mental health stuff just in the thought that I'm gonna need that future surgery and that I'm gonna need all that sort of stuff. It's scary to me.
Hmm.
And I think death, at least for me, is like one of the biggest things I'm petrified of.
Yep. I think a
Um,
lot of people are.
which which is funny because back in high school I attempted suicide.
Yep.
So I mean,
We're glad you
um,
didn't succeed, of course.
yeah, no, that was obviously, yeah, but but this whole like experience, like going through these medical issues, battling with the mental health, it's been quite the you know whirlwind of events, I guess you would say.
No,
Um,
definitely.
but what I wanted to do, and especially because life is too short and whatnot, is I wanted to give back to my community, and I wanted to do that in a way that um, I didn't really want to care about myself or my physical injuries, and maybe that's a little risky, but I'm doing it,
Hmm.
which is basically doing a lot of EMR work. So basically, after I was rehabbed enough, I got my CPRC, standard first aid. Then I advanced to healthcare provider CPR, which is pretty. I'm not say basic because some people don't find it basic, but for me it was,
Hmm.
and it wasn't enough. And with all the knowledge that I got in hospital from listening to nurses, doctors, etc., I was like, I want to do something with this and help people out. So I went through Canadian Red Cross, the great, got my first responder, which is basically like the level above HCP. It's the next level up. And then above that is obviously EMR, which most firefighters have, and even some paramedics have it as well, and stuff like that. So now I'm doing a lot of volunteer work in like the healthcare field. So
Okay.
I'm doing a lot of like during all of COVID, I was volunteering at COVID clinics, and also with my EMR, I've done stuff like event medical, and I'm also part of a community responder program with Peel Regional Paramedic Services. That's called the Community Responder Program, which is basically how can I put it? It's like kind of like a volunteer firefighter situation,
Okay.
but with medics. So basically, I have an app on my phone, and living in Peel region and stuff like that, if there is a critical call, meaning a cardiac arrest within 4 kilometers of me, I will get paged to that call. And they actually provide you with a bag that has a defib in it, AED, a bag valve mask, stop the bleed gear, and stuff like that. And basically, I can arrive to the call prior, sometimes prior to paramedics, fire, and police.
Okay.
So basically, I can get there and start doing CPR on the individual
Definitely.
until another ambulance shows up or something like that.
No, that's
So,
awesome because
um,
every second counts. And so you keep that stuff in your car.
yeah, or in my in the condo that I'm in.
Hmm.
And any page I get, I respond to and I go. And and a lot of people have said, well, isn't that like hurting your back? Isn't that doing damage to like your physical stuff? And most people call me crazy for this, but hate the C word, but I'll say it once. I don't care about myself in the moment that I'm helping that person.
Yeah. The
So
adrenaline kicks in and you're not even
yeah,
thinking about it.
yeah, like I'm not thinking about how sore my back's going to be after, which it's extensively sore.
Mhm.
I'm not thinking about, yeah, I put myself completely to the side, and I just worry about that person, and I
No,
worry about
definitely.
what I've learned and what I was taught, and I put all that medical knowledge that I gained both in hospital being a patient and outside of the hospital from
Hmm.
the courses that I actually took, um, to being able to help that person. And honestly, I feel like that. I'm not gonna say it was ever my true calling, because everybody knows like the entertainment stuff was, but I would definitely say that I wanted to do something with my experience and what I went with, what I went everything I went through, and
Hmm.
I wanted to give back to the healthcare system, and wanted to give back to people that are suffering through traumas, through cardiac arrest situations and stuff like that. Like I wanna try my best to help those people. So
Yeah,
I thought this would be a great outlet to do it. So that's what
definitely.
I've done.
I don't think people realize what they can do and what they can accomplish until they're put into a situation like you were put into, whether it be as an inpatient or now as an outpatient, helping other people. And when you're gone on a call like that, I'm sure the last thing on your mind is thinking about your physical wellness right now. You're thinking about how can I help this person? And I don't think people realize until you're there how powerful you can be and how strong you can be.
Exactly. Like you said it well. Like seconds count when it comes to a cardiac arrest or anything critical like that. And that's just exactly it. When I'm responding to one of those calls, I don't really care about myself. Like I'll worry about my
Hmm.
health later. Someone is currently dying, or having an active cardiac arrest, and I need to be there to try to help them. And same with the event medical. Like I've done a lot of like volunteer stuff in relation to like big festivals and stuff like that. And unfortunately, a lot of the festivals we see overdoses.
Hmm.
So giving that Narcan, breathing for them with the bag valve mask, giving them CPR, that's all a part of that. So
Hmm.
usually I'm with like another responder, so I know that if I get tired out, which I will, because I got weak bones.
For
you know,
sure.
I mean that's questionable. Actually, I got metal in my bones, but it still hurts like heck.
Yeah.
So I know that I can only do CPR for so long. So I know there's other responders coming. So that's why I feel safe enough to respond to stuff like
Hmm.
that, because I know I'm not alone. I know there's other responders on the way.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, yeah, no, I don't really think about myself. It all goes out the window. I worry
Hmm.
about my depression and stuff after the fact. Some calls hit me really hard, some calls don't. Um, and yeah, I love giving back, and that's also why I do a lot of like mental health talks and deep
Hmm.
talks and realistic mental health talks,
Definitely.
because I want to get the word out, right?
Yeah, well, why don't we go into that? So now, on top of that part of your life right now, and we'll get into the acting part in a second there too. But there's also that other part where you go and do speaking gigs and you talk to others. Now, are you doing schools? Are you doing youth halls, like, or are you just talking in general or doing online things like this? You like to talk and help people get through mental health issues and show them different coping methods and how to do it. So how did you get into that, and where are some of these places that you are speaking?
So my very first ever like time I ever talked on stage was after high school. Um, there was a friend of mine that encouraged me, saying, "Listen, like you got a hell of a story to talk from, like your bullying experiences and from what from trying to commit suicide and stuff like that. You need to go, talk on stage and do this." And this is obviously when I was doing a like heavy acting stuff. So I got an opportunity to go talk at this at Louise Russo. She's great. I love her. Louise Russo's Wave event at the Living Arts Center, and that was in front of like 2,000 students in Mississauga. And I was like, I'll do it. I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna start off with. I've never done this before, but I'm gonna do it.
Hmm.
So I went ahead and took the stage, and like I shared my story, and very deep. I talked about the attempted suicide. I talked about everything, and that was the first time I actually shared about my mental health to a
Hmm.
public audience, to a gigantic audience. And that was, that was, um, I don't know how to explain my feelings actually after that one, because I got off stage and I was like, holy crap, I made a fool out of myself. Like I stumbled over some words, I was stuttering a bit because, I wasn't really sure about, I wasn't really sure about what I had just done. Like, did I do the right thing? Like, should I have gone that deep into the attempted suicide thing? Like, I mean, I was like, did I traumatize these poor kids? Like, they were just in
Hmm.
high school, right? So, um, but no, I kind of took it away, and I was like, you know what? I told my story how it is. I talked the exact reality of mental health, and I really hope that my story at least inspired some of them. And
Yeah.
then ever since that event, I've been called back to do different different talks. Like I spoke at Youth Day. I have spoke at a couple of schools. I've done a lot virtually through COVID. So there was a big thing with um, you know with mental health during COVID. Obviously, everyone's locked in one place, right?
Hmm.
Um, so during COVID, I even did some online through what we're like kind of the stuff we're doing now,
Sure.
but specifically about just talking about the mental health side of things. And
And if I'm not mistaken, there was one that I saw you were talking about that was one of your favorite, and you thought it was one of the best platforms to talk was when you had Michael Landsberg have you on his show, Isolation Nation.
Yeah, like sick not weak is awesome. I think I love that saying sick not weak, because the
Hmm.
reality is yeah, like we may be mentally sick with our with our mental illness and depression and stuff like that, but we are so far from weak. And there's so many people out there, not even just myself, but there's so many people out there that do have depression, like, or anxiety, or personality disorders, or bipolar, and they can be they can like literally fall off the face of the earth for a little bit in terms of their mental health, and they could really hit rock bottom, but then they come back so hard, and
Hmm.
and then you can't even tell that they're actually battling through that, right? So
Yeah.
I think the sick not weak, like the not weak part,
Hmm.
really sticks with me.
No, definitely. I totally love that sick not weak. I think that's an amazing way of saying it. And I think you're talking about, did you go too far or too deep when you were doing some of these speaking gigs with the students and that? To me, I know as a parent, to me, I think it was definitely you should have went that far, because some of
Yeah,
these kids, they need to know that they're not the only ones thinking like this, or they're not the only
yeah,
ones out there that do have these thoughts and feelings. So to have somebody like you come on there and say, you know what, when I was in high school, I thought that too.
yeah,
And then after that, I had this accident and I've went through all this stuff, and look where I am now. I'm still here. I'm speaking about it, and I'm just like you said, I'm not sick. I'm not weak. I'm sick, and I'm going to get through this just like you guys will get through this. And they need somebody
absolutely.
out in the public eye to get that out there for them, I think, cuz they'll
Yeah.
that's who they're going to listen to.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. And the thing is, like, unfortunately, I'm not going to name the events, obviously, but I
Mhm.
have had the odd event that has tried to censor me in terms of like what to say and what not to say.
Sure.
And in my mind, I was just like, listen, like, if we're going to be real here with mental health, if you genuinely want my, heart to heart story, then I don't know how I'm going to be able to come on and talk to you. And there are a couple events that I've actually declined because of that, because they really wanted me to like isolate a lot of the stuff that I was going through,
Mhm.
and not talk about that. And I'm like, but that's how I ended up like having such severe depression. That's, like my attempted suicide, like that is something that is serious because there's a lot of kids, especially nowadays, that either have taken their own life or have attempted suicide. I'm like,
Hmm.
why are we trying to censor this? And we're like, oh, it's going to be triggering to some people. But in my mind, I'm like, okay, but if we don't talk about it and we keep silent about it, then that's also not going to help.
Hmm.
So there are a couple events that like I actually unfortunately did have to decline because of that. And there were a couple events that I actually did do that were semi censoring. So
Hmm.
I just don't think we should censor mental health. I really
No, I
don't.
agree with you totally. It's got to be out there. And Kat brings up a good thing. I think you kind of touched on it a little bit, but she's wondering, Corey, where do you get your inspiration to do motivational speeches and discuss your experiences? Where does that motivation come from? Is it from inside? Is it from just your experiences alone? Or is it just a mixture of experiences of yours, but also things you've seen of others? Because I'm sure when you're doing these talks, you've done some shows, I'm sure, where you're not the only speaker. There's other ones that's went through stuff too, and you're probably learning from them
Yeah.
also.
No, absolutely. I think sharing stories with other people that have been through similar stuff or um, is a very important thing. I have met some very amazing people doing speaking engagements because you're right. Like, it's obviously not just me talking at a lot of these events. So when I'm backstage, I'm always networking and trying to, and, if I hear somebody's story on stage, I'm like, "Okay, I have to go talk to them.
Hmm.
I have to go talk to them."
Yep.
And I do exactly that. And it's amazing what a lot of these people have been through.
Hmm.
I don't think, like, sure, I've been through a lot in my life, and I think that, yeah, I've been through the ringer, but I definitely don't think that, like, my story is the only inspirational story out there by any means.
Hmm.
Like, I think there's so many inspirational stories out there. I just love being able to share my story because I love being able to help other people. I think
Hmm.
that's what it is. Yeah, it's like slightly therapeutic to me when I share my story. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. Sometimes I'm like, I don't want to talk about that right now. But then,
Exactly.
but then at the same time, like, it is a little therapeutic to me. But I'm not really doing it for myself. I'm
Hmm.
doing it to try to help other people.
Yes. No, I think that's awesome. And I agree with you. There's times where you just don't want to talk about it. There's times where you just want to be you. You want to watch
Yeah.
TV and eat popcorn. You want to go to the movies with your friends and just hang out. You don't want to be bombarded by people saying, "Oh, hey, I had a question for you," or this and that. And I mean, you're the type of person that would do it anyways. You're sitting in a restaurant, somebody came up to you. I'm sure you wouldn't turn them away. I mean, you
No.
seem to me like the guy who would give the shirt off your back to somebody if you could, if you knew it was going to help them. And then we need more people like that. But I think these special events that you're going to, the way you're speaking to them and how you're speaking to them, and I think that's the most important thing. It's not just what you're saying, it's how you're saying it to them. You're coming across to them as somebody that's not only been through that, but you also are coming with compassion and caring words, because it's a difference between just getting up there and telling people, well, this is what might be happening to you and this is how you should deal with it. But you're saying, you know what, here's a way that you could deal with it the way I
Yeah.
did it. It might not work for you, but this is what happened to me. And you're coming more of as a compassionate friend. I don't know if that makes sense to you or.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what I say. Like, when I do my talks and stuff, I'm like, a lot of the stuff that I do probably won't work for you, or may work for you. It's kind of up to you to kind of decide. But I always like to say healthy coping methods are always the best option.
Mhm.
I kind of relay this a little bit of information about how back in high school I tried to use alcohol to get away from my depression.
Mhm.
You don't want to do that. Trust me.
No.
You don't want to do that. But yeah, yeah, you're definitely not like wrong about that, and that is something that I do say in a lot of my discussions about mental health. Is try to find
Definitely.
your own healthy coping methods and see what works for you, see what doesn't. For me, group therapy just doesn't work for me as well. I do like the one-on-one therapy and venting to
Mhm.
someone one-on-one. I don't. The group therapy does work for a lot of people, but just doesn't work for me.
No, exactly. And like you said, it's not for everybody. So um, now let's try and get into more. Let's show people how much of a positive role can be played once you start putting some of these coping methods to place and not letting a lot of that stuff get to you and keep you down. Because it's not a matter of, okay, I'm depressed or I've got anxiety and like just getting in that down place and trying to come out of it. But it's what you do with it afterwards. It's how you deal with, okay, I'm here, I'm going to get myself out of this, but what am I going to do afterwards so that I don't try and end up back here? Because now
Yeah.
you, of course, you take music, you have your music things, and your acting. Why don't we go a little bit into some of the acting stuff that you've done, some of the things you got coming out? And if I'm not mistaken,
Sure.
now this was probably 2 years ago, but I think you said it was about a year ago. It was supposed to come out. You were doing a song with a gentleman from Glass Tiger there.
Yeah, so I actually did. So, that's what we were talking about earlier. So my voice is not nearly as good as what it used to be in elementary school because I was actually a choir kid. I actually rehearsed my voice like crazy. But I specifically was like on my phone one night, and this is like obviously after my trauma and everything, and I found I personally was getting a lot of like different vibes and feelings from music, and I was like, it'd be a great idea to try to put some of my um, mental health issues and my struggles into music. So I did exactly that. So I actually did two songs. I currently don't have any plans to do any more songs at the moment, just because it's a lot of money to get into studio.
Hmm.
So I had some people that supported me to do those two songs, and that was great. But it's a lot of money to get into recording studios. So I don't have any plans at the moment to write any more music. Sorry, I lied. I do have one song. Wait, I just remembered. I do have one song that is written on my phone that I have not produced yet.
Okay.
Um, but there are two that are out right now. One's called Beyond the Blue, which is a song that I wrote with Michael Hansen, who was from Glass Tiger. And then the other song that I wrote, I believe, was called. I'm going back to look at it at this very moment. It was, yeah, Better This Way. So it was kind of a collaboration right up between those two songs. I'm not going to take full credits for writing those songs by any means, because Better This Way was written in a studio in the Hamilton area with my good friend Joshua Pascua and his buddy Schwa, who produced it. And what we did was the three of us was like, because I'm not a songwriter, so I collaborate with the two of them, and was like, listen guys, I want to write a song about like mental health and stuff like that. I want to make it real, I want to make it deep. What are we going to do? I want it to be simplistic at the same time, because I want maybe a radio station to pick it up, just to be
Hmm.
like, hey, um no luck there, but we did get it on social media.
Good.
But but no, nonetheless, it was awesome. um but yeah, Better This Way was a little bit more darker, kind of darker vibe to the lyrics and stuff like that. We did that on purpose. And
Mhm.
Beyond the Blue was still a little bit darker, but at the same time talking about beyond the blue. In other words, trying to get yourself out of that depression state. And
Okay.
that was written with myself and Michael Hansen, who
Hmm.
was great. So yeah, like really fortunate to be able to do those two songs. Would love to do more. I do have one sitting on my song right now that I worked on. Um, but I'm definitely more in the acting world
Okay.
and like content creator world for sure.
Definitely. Are those songs available online if people wanted to go and listen to them?
Yeah, they're both on Spotify.
Okay.
Under my name, just search Corey Dixon on Spotify. I believe they're on Apple Music. I did it all through DistroKid, so they should be distributed like everywhere right now.
Hmm.
I believe they're also on YouTube. I think.
Okay. Well,
Um,
I'll try and find it later. If I can find it on YouTube, I'll put the link on our page there on our Facebook page that people can go and check it out.
yeah, absolutely.
No, because I know I would love to listen to it. I just when I was doing my research for today, I noticed I remember hearing that and I thought that was pretty cool because I was a Glass Tiger fan growing up. So I mean, um, that
Uh,
really stood out to me. So let's get into a bit of your acting. So we already know that you had that part in Degrassi. I think that was just what, one episode, or did you actually, were you a reoccurring role or?
It was just one episode, but
Okay.
the cool part about that is, what I like telling people is I was on set all day. Like when
Hmm.
I say I had a call time at like 5 in the morning, and didn't leave the set till probably like 6, 8 o'clock at night. Like it was a long day.
I can
Um,
imagine.
so the cool thing about that was like I went through like all of hair and wardrobe. I got to meet like all the lead cast members. Like it was really cool. I got my own dressing room for the day, which was awesome. It was one of my first acting gigs, and I talk about it till this day just because of that. It was one of my first big acting gigs.
Hmm.
And it was a great experience. And I actually even got called back because of all the screaming I did in that scene. I got
Yeah.
called back to have to go in and do audio dubs like on it. So I went back to recording studio and had to redo it in a recording studio. So yeah, that was really cool. But nonetheless, it was just cool to see. That was my very first film, like big film set.
Hmm.
So like going in there and just seeing like how they did all the production stuff and whatnot, I was like, holy cow, like this is amazing.
Yeah.
This
See,
is
I'm
great
really
stuff.
old because I remember the original Degrassi Junior High
Yeah.
TV show. and so that goes back to when I was in high school. So, and I know the area I think where that school is in the Mississauga area. So, I thought it was cool. I saw the episode where you're on the drum set there, and it was pretty funny.
Oh yeah, so it's funny because when we arrived to like the set, it like there's a massive security gate, stuff like that. It was actually just outside of Toronto. So we get on the DVP. The original set was somewhere down the DVP there and
Hmm.
like up the hill. So so yeah, you got to set this massive like security gate, and I was like, oh, okay, this is like excessive. And then you and then like we walked in, had to check in with security, then went in, got escorted in to the dressing room and stuff, and then I was basically like kind of like borderline free to roam at that point. They said don't
Hmm.
go downstairs because that's where all the set pieces are.
Yep.
And it's basically like this giant like warehouse that they made into to like a 2-level school.
Yep.
Actually, sorry, the second level it looks like a 2-level school, but the second level was all the dressing rooms, hangout room, lunchroom, break rooms, wardrobe, stuff like that,
Okay.
makeup. The lower floor was actually where, so you see the front glass doors of the Degrassi set. That's actually where they started building the sets, and on all the
Okay.
lower floor there is where they built like the music room, the cafeteria. You would go to like through like the cafeteria. Next thing you know, you'd be in the gym. So like so like the rooms were very much close apart, and it was like set after set after set after set.
No, that's awesome. And then I remember seeing something about Splat a lot, and it brought memories because I remember seeing shows like that as a kid, or even um, oh, there was that one that out of California with the Warriors, and you had to compete against them and do all these different events, and that. And that's what it
Oh yeah.
reminded me of.
Oh yeah. So that opportunity came about. I was like, my agent was like, "Hey Corey, we get this interesting opportunity they sent out to like act genuine actors," and they're like, "Do you want to do this?" And I read it, like I read the script, and I'm like, "So." I'm basically going on the show and possibly getting hurt, and and they were like, "Yes, yes, exactly that."
Yeah.
So I did exactly that. I went on the set of Splat a lot. Once again, such a cool set. Hung out with all the other kids that day that were on that set as well. Networking. So at that point, I was very extroverted. So I was networking with all the other the kid actors that were there as well.
Uh-huh.
Like with myself, I was a kid at that time. I think it was like I had to be. I was only like 15, 16 during Splat a
Okay.
lot. But yeah, and we didn't really know what to expect because they were like, "Listen, throw on the wetsuit. Here's your life jacket. Best of luck." And I was like, I was like, what's about to happen? And
Yeah.
then they start you off like, hey, so when you get to the entry point through the doors, you're gonna say just a random thing. I said the dumbest thing. I was like, I race go-karts and I'm gonna own this castle. And then I just leap for the first barrel. Half my thing didn't even show because I kept wiping out. Like I kept wiping out that much. And then I went up this like super slippery, they labeled it with like soap. And I went
Okay.
up this super slippery like slide thing, and they shot me twice in the head with a baseball, like a
Oh,
baseball. Sorry,
jeez.
not a baseball, a tennis ball.
Yeah.
Like one shot in my neck. I was like, okay, oh, that kind of hurt. And then the next shot right off the head, and then like the guy was wearing a helmet, but it knocked me off my balance, and I fell into water. So that was
So is this like a competition, like a game type of thing where you're going
exactly,
against other
yeah,
people and trying to get the fastest time or something or beat somebody? It reminds me of
yeah.
it's American Gladiators I was thinking of. I don't know if you ever saw the show American Gladiators.
It's basically it was a kid's version of Wipeout.
Okay, exactly. And
So
I
yeah,
love Wipeout. Wipeout was awesome. So
yeah, but they say kids version, but meanwhile it still hurt just as bad.
I can imagine.
Like, it still hurt.
So now going into adulthood, you're starting to get more serious roles. And what are some of the stuff like you have that one that came out this year actually?
So yeah, so my most recent was a pilot project that's still in negotiations. We can't talk too much about where it's heading.
Sure.
But it's called The Injustices. It was super dark. It was the director actually reached out to me and was like, "Hey, like here's the script. You want to do this?" And I was like, "Okay, let's do it." And it was dark. Like my
Hmm.
character by no means is like there he like borderline like he not borderline he overly snapped, so
Hmm.
basically like it's kind of like a Bates Motel kind of
Okay.
vibe. So there was a Bates Motel series, I can't remember what it was
Yeah, I
exactly called
remember
on
it.
Netflix. Yeah, so like there was a series they kind of made based on Bates Motel, and it's very similar to that in a way because
It was
like
actually called Bates Motel because the original movie was
oh yeah.
Psycho. Yeah.
Yes, 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 yes. So
Yeah.
they had the series Bates Motel.
Yeah.
That's right, and it was filmed in Vancouver.
Yeah.
And basically it's kind of the Injustice is kind of similar to that in a way where my character goes through a lot of life struggles,
Hmm.
doesn't know how to handle them, and eventually actually like snaps and like becomes a serial killer. Spoiler alert. Um, and but it's interesting because like he has friends where he doesn't kill them, and he kind
Hmm.
of like messes with them, and like kind of makes makes it seem like he is completely innocent, and
Hmm.
there's
Well, I
nothing going
watched the
wrong with him.
trailer and it is pretty dark. I mean, I
Yeah,
think if you go to YouTube and you type in Corey Dixon, there is the trailer on there and it's
yeah.
about 3 minutes long. And I think the first two episodes are on there. I never got a chance to watch those, but I did see the trailer and I'm like, my wife would probably like this because she's into horror movies. And I think that's another thing I remember reading about you or seeing about you on some of your stuff is I guess growing up, you were a big horror movie fanatic.
Oh, 150%. So one of the acting gigs that I got, like a live acting gig I got, was being an atmosphere performer at Halloween Haunt at Canada's Wonderland, which is not one of the maze actors. It's one of the actors that actually engage with the crowd as they walk around the
Okay.
park.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I worked for them for about 5 years doing that. I've always loved horror movies, and I said if someone asked me what my dream movie to act on or dream director or producer to
Hmm.
work with is, it's James Wan, the creator
Okay.
of the Insidious franchise and the Conjuring. He worked on the
Hmm.
Conjuring and stuff like that. If I could work on a set with James Wan in a horror movie, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. I
And
am
see with me, I'm
so
not the
that.
horror movie fan. I was when I was a kid. Like I was into the
Yeah.
back then, like as a kid, you're into the Friday 13th and the Halloweens and things like that. As I've gotten older, I'm more into the psychological thriller type horrors, ones that are more play with your mind a bit, not the gory stuff. My wife will do
Oh
the
yeah.
gory stuff. I'm not the
Well,
gory stuff.
you'll like the Injustice then because there's a lot of psychological stuff with that one, and
Hmm.
also I Calix, who's the writer of it, they made it very poetic in a
Okay.
way, borderline poetic. So there's a lot of scenes where you might not understand it right off the bat, but
Hmm.
then after you watch it a bit, you'll put two and two together and be like, ah, that makes sense. Like I'm
Ah,
not gonna spoil anything,
no,
but
of course not.
it's a very different type of horror vibe. But if you do like horror thrillers, stuff like that, I would definitely recommend checking it out. The first two pilot episodes that are that are not within the negotiation plan are actually, which is obviously because those are the pilots. So those are the ones we actually used to submit with.
Hmm.
And we did a whole screening in a theater as well. So we actually had a theater for those two episodes. But if you would like to check them out, they're on my YouTube page for you to
Exactly.
watch.
Go for it. And I'm looking at your thing. Like you've got a lot of stuff on here. I mean, people's got to go check you out. Like YTV. Was it the 2018 Much Music Video Awards? I don't know what you did there, but
Oh, well, that was just more of a like an influencer thing, which is really cool because I got to bump shoulders with so many iconic musicians and
mhm.
iconic just iconic talents. I got to meet Marshmello and his crew. I got to meet Shawn Mendes. There were some really awesome people at that
Mhm.
award show that I never would have thought that I would have ever got to work either work with or meet or anything like that. So it was a privilege to be at that event.
And is there anything coming up that that you're able to talk about other than the injustices, of course? And we can't talk about anything going on with that in the future right now. That's we. But is there any other kind of things on the fire? Any things that people should be watching for Corey on?
I mean, definitely. So from the acting standpoint, unfortunately not, because
Yep.
NDAs exist.
Hmm.
But in regards to content
Speaking
creation stuff,
engagements. Yep.
lots of content creation stuff coming
Okay.
your way very soon. I do lots of stuff with like influencer stuff based with Canada's Wonderland and other cool brands like that. There's a lot of stuff that I do put on my YouTube page. So a
Hmm.
lot of stuff that either I self create or work with another videographer to create. A lot of that stuff will go up on my YouTube or social media sites. So yes, a lot of content creation stuff are coming your way soon.
Awesome. So we're coming to the end of it here. We've actually went a little bit over, but I knew that you and I, once we got talking, we could probably go 2, 3 hours if we had to. But I wanted to end on a positive note there. So one way I would like to end this before we go is I want to ask you one question, and I just want you to just go by the top of your head. You've probably been asked this many times, but I like to ask this because no matter how many times somebody's been asked this, it could have been asked 10 years ago, 5 years ago, and then today a lot of times the answers change because life changes. And so I'm going to ask you to end this with give us an idea of who is Corey Dixon.
Oh geez. See, I don't know how to say this without like because I'm not trying to sound cocky, but I like to
Nope.
think of myself as, someone that does care about other people.
Mhm.
Um, uh, there's a lot of selfless things that I've done, kind of put myself to the side and really worried about other people first. Um, I have a huge passion for the entertainment industry as a whole. Major respect for people that work in it. Um, I, and honestly, I don't know, because like it's funny because a lot of people ask this question and I sit
Yep.
there and I'm like, bro, it's like, I really don't take too much time to think about myself as often. I,
Yep.
I kind of do my thing with the passion with the entertainment industry. I go out there and try to help other people. I don't really take the time to sit down and actually say, hey, Corey is this, Corey is that, Corey is this. So,
Mhm.
um, but yeah, I'd like to think of
It
myself as
is a
someone
hard
who
question
cares.
when you think about it. I mean, that's why I asked the
It
question,
is.
because it is
Oh yeah.
hard for anybody to answer who you are. And I think you are. I'm part of a local business group called BNI. It's actually a global business group called Business Networking International, and we have one main piece that we go by that encompasses all of what our business group is. And I think you kind of encompass that a bit on a personal level. And our whole model for BNI is givers gain. If I give business to this person, then they're going to want to give business back to me. And I think if you turn
Absolutely.
that around a little bit, you can put that on you also and say that giver's gain works perfectly in your life, because you're the type of person that if you give to somebody else, it's going to come back to you in twofold. And even if all these speaking engagements that you're pouring your heart out into and all these, like the stuff we're doing today, my whole goal of putting this show together, not just with you, but all my episodes that I do, is I'm hoping that we can at least help one person. And if I can even help one person, I think we've done our job. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think you have totally, I think you've helped more than one person. You've helped many, many, many. I know Kat's on there. She's a mutual friend of ours, and she
Hi,
said,
Kat.
what a great episode. Very inspirational. Thank you, Corey. You're amazing. So I think a lot of people felt that. And I want to appreciate, I'm very appreciative that you were willing to open up a little bit here, probably a little more than you usually do. Because I think most people try and sort of shy back. I try to ask some of the hard questions, and I hope that you enjoyed your time on here. And I think you're going to help a lot of people. And just to let everybody know, by all means, you can go to our YouTube channel and subscribe. It's not just on Facebook. Go to YouTube. You can watch this over and over and share this with your friends, because I think a lot of people can really learn from what Corey's talking about. So I
I really hope
appreciate you
so.
coming on.
No, thank you so much for having me. And honestly, no matter the size of any platform that I've been on, I always say I appreciate it gratefully, because just being able to be given a platform to be able to share my story on and to try to help somebody else means
Mhm.
the absolute world to me. So thank you so much, Sean, for having me. It means a lot.
No, and I thank you for taking your time out. And if anybody does have anything that they would like to talk to Corey about, I'm sure if you reach out to him, he's on social media. What are some of the places they can find you?
Okay, so my Twitter is Corey Dixon, Corey Dixon Dixon 33. My Instagram is the same thing, Corey Dixon 33. My Facebook, so I have two. So I have my private, like, add his friend account, and then I have my fan page. So you can message me on either one. I try my best to message people as soon as I can, but because I like
Yeah.
get so swamped with just like daily life things, I might not get back to you right away. But I promise you, I'll try. But yeah, so and if you tweet to me or whatever, or put a comment up on one of my posts on Instagram, I'll see it and comment back to you as well.
Awesome. And I'll try and share some of those links on my page so everybody can find you. And I'll even try and find those songs and we'll put them on there. And if there's anything you need, don't be afraid to reach out to us over here. And again, I appreciate it. And I hope everybody enjoyed it. And until next time, we've got some great guests coming up in the next couple episodes. I've already got our September show already booked, ready to go. And we've got our October show actually booked, ready to go. If there's anybody out there that is going through some rough times, you're not going to want to miss any of our shows. Go back, see some of the last ones, and watch Corey's again. Watch this one over and over and over. He's got so much knowledge here, and go check him out. And until next time, I hope everybody has a great day, a great week, and love everybody. And this show, we're trying to empower you. We're trying to motivate you and inspire you to be the best person that you can be. And until next time, remember, if anybody asks, say the Butler did it.